August 6th Board of Appeals meeting. And today on our agenda, we have 943 Main Street as well as 264 Ash Street. If you would like to speak on either of these matters today, I'd like for you to stand up now, please. We're going to swear everybody in at once to make this easy. If you're planning on speaking today, stand up and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that your testimony before the Board of Appeals today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? The response is, I do.
I do.
All right.
So they have to, can you 64 actually request that they could go first? Your discretion.
I'm not opposed to it. Okay, so we'll actually do this in reverse order. The first one up today will be 264 Ash Street. And the Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing in the Select Board meeting room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Massachusetts, on Tuesday, August 6, 2024 at 7 p.m. on the application of Attorney Josh Latham pursuant to MGLC 40A, Section 9 for special permit under the Reading zoning bylaw, Sections 5.32, 7.0, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.32, which has an existing legal non-conforming two-family dwelling, and reconstruct a new two-family dwelling on the property located at 246 Ash Street, Assessors Map 12, Lot 126 in Reading, Massachusetts. Just 1 second. Unless there's any objection, I will dispense with the reading of the abutters list, except to say that the abutters were notified as were the following: Select Board, Town Clerk, Police Department, Fire Department, Building Department, Conservation Commission, Health Department, Assessor's Office, Engineering Division, CPDC, members and associate members of the Board of Appeals, as well as the planning boards of Wakefield, Linfield, North Reading, Stoneham, Woburn, Wilmington. Oh, there's my testimony. The floor is yours, Josh.
Good evening, Attorney Josh Latham here tonight on behalf of SGSG Realty LLC. It's the owner of the property. It's an LLC, but it's actually the Cresta family. They're here with me tonight. It's Nancy and Richard Cresta. They're sitting back here. They actually live across the street, so they live within the neighborhood. They've talked to a lot of the neighbors about this as well, so I think we might have some folks here tonight in support. But to give a brief overview, this is an application for an pre-existing, non-conforming two-family dwelling at 264, 266 Ash Street. This property dates to about 1890 per the assessor's records, which is consistent with the construction style and the nature of the property. The property is non-conforming with regards to use because it's located within the S15 zoning district, which does not allow two-family. However, it is pre-existing non-conforming. And to that, if I may approach the board, I have copies of street listings going back to 1972 in paper, but then I have 1936 and 1944 that I went to the library and took a photo of, which didn't come out very well. But they all reflect the same addresses, 264, 266, with different families living in each one. So it does predate the zoning in 1944. May I approach this?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I've actually marked the two addresses, and this is all of them within one packet. It's up to you. So I think if you quickly look through the street lists, I start with 2000 to keep it simple. And I've put a star next to these two units for this property, and it goes back to 1991, 1988. Then we have 1982. Then we have 1974. And I can submit the 1936 and 1944 electronically, or I'll go back and get better quality copies. But if anyone does want to see them, I do actually have them here. They didn't come out very well. But just for purposes, there's the 1936. And then here we are with the 1942. So what we're proposing today is to raise the existing kind of higher and two-family building, to build a new two-family within the same lot. The only other nonconformity besides use is front yard setback. So the existing property is set back approximately between 10.6 feet and 18.1 feet from the front yard. That is non-conforming because in the S15 district, 20 feet is required. Our proposal is to build a new two-family dwelling that conforms entirely with all zoning dimensional requirements. So we will actually make this a more conforming property as a result of this proposal if you approve it tonight with a special permit. The other piece to it, this property is, it's an interesting neighborhood in that it's a very transitional, diverse neighborhood. So obviously the standard for the board under 7.2 is that you find that what we're proposing is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming two-family use. I know you're very familiar with that standard. I think it might be useful to reflect on really what is the nature of the neighborhood. If you do a quick review of, just from the assessor's database, and you click on the property types and you look at it from an aerial view, within just 300 feet, you have industrial properties behind. You have the RMLD building, just 4 properties up to the north. You have commercial, whether it's retail, office, and automotive, all within that same area. You have at least 12 two-family properties just within 100 yards. There's also 2 multifamily properties, 3 units or more, also one on this very street at 284 Ash Street, and another one on Main Street. With regards to what their abutters are, the abutter to the north is a two-family. The abutter to the south is a two-family. The abutter to the rear is industrial, and it's the Reading Medical Office Building on Pond Meadow Drive that you come to off of Walker's Brook. So within the neighborhood, there isn't really a consistent standard of what is the nature of the homes and the structures. Now, certainly there is a single-family residential feel when you cross the street and start getting closer within the neighborhood itself. But just on this side of the street, there are 5 two-family buildings in a row. Then there's a single family, then there's a 3-family. On the other direction, you then get to the RMLD, and then you start getting to office and you get closer to the railroad tracks. So within the nature of the neighborhood, I would pose to you that the two-family proposal that we're making as a duplex two-family style would be consistent with what would be, again, a diverse transitional type neighborhood. Really, beyond that, our argument is that we believe it's not detrimental at all to the neighborhood, let alone substantially more detrimental. So we would pose that we think this would be appropriate, especially based on the precedent of this board when approaching similar projects, and actually ones that are even more challenging. The board has consistently found that, if it isn't really going to be a significant deviation in the neighborhood, it would be appropriate to special permit in these circumstances. So with that, it closes my presentation. We're happy to answer any questions that the public might have. Thank you.
Questions first or public first?
We can do comments and questions from the board first. I have one question. For the street listings, were this the only ones that showed up as two families, or
Within the street?
for the street listings that you?
Yeah. So what I've done is I only had those at my office.
Oh,
We just have kind of our own collection of old street listings and bylaws. Trust me. I went through the box. Those are the ones we had handy.
Oh, okay.
So I quickly copied those, and then I said, you know what, they're gonna wanna see one prior to 1942. Shot over to the library, went into the historic local records office, pulled out 36, pulled out 42, took a photo of both. Both of them show both 264 and 2C6 with separate families living in each address.
Okay.
So this is a two-family by virtue of the fact that it's been a two-family for close to 100 years, not because it was ever formally
Changed.
changed
Yeah.
to be a two-family or authorized to be a two-family.
Correct. I did look through the building permit records, and we really didn't find anything other than something for the barn in the back, which wasn't very helpful.
This lot imposes on both it's also in a residential district, but it's also in an industrial district, is it not?
That's correct, yeah.
Although the home you're talking about taking down and replacing is all within
That's accurate, yeah.
residential.
So the entire part of the work we're proposing is entirely within the residential, the S15 portion of this lot. You'll see on the plot plan that was submitted, the line doesn't carry all the way across, but you can see where it connects into the lot lines. That is the industrial district to the rear. That's why there's an industrial park behind us. That's why the Reading Medical Office Center is behind us as well.
But it's been around longer than the bylaws
It has, yes.
existed in this town, which I think is, what, 1942? maybe?
Yep, and that's why I think those two street listings, the 36 and 42, both show that for this property, it was a two-family at that time and prior
So
to
at
that.
that time it was legal.
Correct.
Okay.
I see that there is asbestos in the siding. How are you gonna be able to mitigate that when you're taking down the house?
I think it's gonna be expensive. They're gonna have to follow all the protocols for DEP to make sure they do containment. That's part of the reason that the new construction makes more sense than simply renovating what's there. Getting, all the modern efficiencies, taking care of all the environmental aspects. There's lead paint for sure in the property, the asbestos siding, asbestos roof. So it's something that this is actually, it's gonna improve a lot beyond just creating a new two-family. It also allows us to address a lot of those other concerns.
Is this considered a historic property at all?
It is not.
Do you know if the town has multiple families registered to vote for this?
They have historically, and that's what the street listing ultimately went towards, was if there was a little asterisk, I may have covered in some spots unintentionally, but if there's a little asterisk, it meant they were registered to vote at that time.
Okay. Does the board have any more questions, comments? Let's open up for public comment. Does anyone want to speak or be heard on 246 Ash Street? Here, what is it, 246? Oh, maybe it's a typo.
264.
Alright, I'm the wrong, alright. Amanda, what are you doing to me? No, I'm just kidding. 264 Ash Street. Alright.
Or 246 for that matter.
Yeah, okay. Let's close for public comment. Any further comment from the board?
I'd like to remind those of us who were here at the time that about a year ago, we considered on this same street, right down the street, a request to basically legalize a property that had been used as a two-family for quite some time,
337-ish?
maybe. We did not approve that one. We did not find,
Last year, right?
yeah, I think it was roughly a year ago. And I'm wondering if anybody on the board can recall any differences between that one and this one.
They did not
That
have
was a,
street listings.
Yeah, that was an accessory dwelling unit.
Yes, yeah, 337
That was-
Ash.
they've been
They
using
were
it
trying to go from an
as
accessory, they were trying to go from a single to with an accessory dwelling unit to a two-family.
Okay,
Right,
okay.
that was the difference, yeah.
Totally different.
I do remember that. Entertain a motion if anyone.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Question before I do that, because
Sure.
there's 6 of us here and 5 of us vote.
One, two, oh yeah, alright, so,
Be either Frank or,
okay, you can take the first one, you wanna sit on the second?
Should I take the first one, because I was making comment during this one?
Sure, doesn't.
You can take this one.
okay, I would move to grant the petitioner, Attorney Joshua Latham, a special permit pursuant to Mass General Law 40A, Section B, under Section 9, under bylaw Section 7.2, to tear down an existing legal non-conforming two-family structure and reconstruct a new two-family structure on the property located at 264 Ash Street in Reading, in accordance with plot plan of land dated January 3rd, 2024, with the revisions through July 24, 2024, prepared and certified by Hayes Engineering, 603 Salem Street in Lakeville. And the architectural drawings that were included with the application. The standard conditions for special permit do apply, and I'll read them for the benefit of everybody. The petitioner shall submit to the building inspector a certified plot plan of the proposed construction and proposed foundation plans prior to the issuance of a foundation permit for the work. The petitioner's final construction plans for the new structure shall be submitted to the building inspector along with the as-built foundation plans prior to the issuance of a building permit. And the as-built plan showing the completed construction shall be submitted to the building inspector immediately after the work is completed and prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit.
I just want to add a condition, no driveways are approved here and driveways are subject to review and approval of the engineer division.
Make that a condition.
Yes.
Right, that's fine.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Let's see here. Let's see.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Take care.
Next on our agenda, I would like to call.
We leave this out, it doesn't appear
Sure.
that the air conditioning is working tonight.
Sure.
Yeah,
It's
it's-
very
Yeah,
not.
just getting-
Yeah.
Yeah,
If it just gets noisy, just like.
thank you.
Next on our agenda is 943 Main Street. The zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing in the select board's meeting room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Massachusetts, on Tuesday, August 6, 2024 at 7 p.m. on the application of Daniel Huntington pursuant to MGLC 40A, Section 9 for special permit under the Reading zoning bylaws, sections 5.3, 7.0, and 7.2, as may be determined by the zoning board, to allow a change of pre-existing non-conforming commercial use on the property located at 943 Main Street in Reading. Do I have to read this again?
Yes.
Unless there is an objection, I will dispense with the reading of the abutters list, except to say that the abutters were notified, as were the following: Select Board, Town Clerk, Police Department, Fire Department, Building Department, Conservation Commission, Health Department, Assessor's Office, Engineering Division, CBDC, members of the associate members of the Board of Appeals, as well as the planning boards of Wakefield, Linfield, North Reading, Stoneham, Woburn, and Wilmington. And we already swore everyone in, so if Mr. Daniel Huntington would like to present.
Sure. You want me to come up to the podium?
Yes, please. Case number 24-10.
And just very quick, actually, before we get started, I do need to just make folks aware that Mr. Huntington and I do know each other outside of these particular circumstances. However, under no circumstances was he aware that I was probably even on this board, or have we had any discussions whatsoever about
Not at all.
about Mr. Huntington's application for this matter?
You want to recuse yourself from voting?
No, I don't believe it's necessary.
Okay, if you don't believe it's necessary, then we'll believe you.
Okay.
Right. So I'm Dan Huntington. I own 941 and 943 Main Street in Reading. I purchased it a few months ago with my father, who's sitting here. Right now, I do believe we have a special permit for a auto body / mechanic that I would like to change in order to accommodate a different tenant in there. And I have Ty here today, Ty Costin, the owner of Eastern Pine Pest Control, who is wants to utilize that property for his business. So I would like to apply for a special permit that I do believe would be less detrimental to the surrounding area. I kind of want to get away from the mechanic, oils, things like that. The property was recently deemed clean and cost a lot of money for the previous owner to remediate all the soil and all that stuff. So I would like to just hand over the podium, if that's okay, to Ty to talk about what he's looking to do with the property, and then we can field some questions after that.
Sure. And if you have a current picture, I looked it up online, but I think it was kind of outdated.
Of the property?
Yeah.
I didn't bring one, I'm sorry.
That's
I might have
On the street
There's
view.
one of them.
Sure,
Oh, the one I looked at.
sorry. It should have been in the files. My first zoning board meeting.
Here.
Oh, nice.
That's it.
So the property currently is mixed use,
Yeah.
Okay.
and it is on the same lot as a single-family dwelling with a separate address. At some point, they created two addresses, 941 and 943, but they're both on the same lot of land. And then it's like a roughly 1,300 square foot garage with two bays. That was as far back as I can remember, and, dating back to the 60s and 50s as a mechanic, was in there. So I'll let Ty talk a little bit about what he does and what he's gonna do with the property or what he plans to do.
I'm Ty, nice to meet you all. I own a general pest control company. Basically, we do wasp control, ant control, rodent control at 943 Main Street. We're looking to do a similar thing to what we're doing in North Reading right now, which is we've been there for the past 6 years, and similar residential setting. We've had no complaints during that time. We service many of the local homeowners there. We're on the road for like 90% of the day, so we're mostly just using the office to store ladders, grab lunch, grab a sandwich, grab water, and hit the road again. So at the actual office, we don't really do a whole lot versus just going there quickly, grabbing something, and hitting the road. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Just very quickly, the residence that's attached to the property as well, is that ultimately what's going to become the office? If you said.
No.
No. So
Totally separate entity.
So then it was just the two garage bays that'll end up being the office?
correct, yep.
So what would you be storing in there?
So mostly like office stuff. Every so often I go there to use the laptop. We have some extra ladders that we're gonna have there. We'll have a small storage unit for product. That's pretty much it. Food, things like that. It's really not a whole lot.
What happens with all the rodents and whatever you catch? Do you bring anything back there or?
Got it. So we do mostly trapping. So basically it's like small snap traps for mice. So we do put that in trash bags. We'll be putting that in a stored unit for trash barrels and just dispose of that as needed.
Or larger ones?
We really don't catch a whole lot of larger ones. We don't do a ton of rat control, but if we were doing that, we'd be doing the same thing. We don't do like wildlife control, so there's
Nothing
no,
gets stored there?
yeah, so there's no raccoons or anything like that, just small rodents.
Just reading through the application, it does say that you guys do end up storing liters or gallons of the insecticides or pesticides that you may end up having to use. In terms of just oversight and some of the concerns, did you have to obtain a permit from the town as well in order to store any of those particular insecticides or pesticides that you use?
That's a good question. I don't believe so, not as far as I know. So we'll be having them in a stored locked box. Most of the products we have in our trucks, we come back to grab the product maybe once a week, small quart-sized bottles. But I don't believe we need a special permit for that.
Have you needed any permits in any of the other locations? I believe you said you were in North Reading starting now or up to this point?
Yes, we didn't need any special permits for that.
You keep in both locations?
I'm not. We're gonna fully move here. It's a smaller garage in North Reading, so I'm looking to upsize a little bit.
You're operating out of North Reading now, right?
We are, yep.
What do you do with your trash now?
So we just dispose of it on a trash day, weekly basis.
Okay. Have you ever thought about just taking the trash you collect from day to day and taking it to the regular disposal?
I could consider that. So in terms of like any products, we use it's like once a year, this hazardous waste day. So if we do have like bottles or anything like that, we'd be using the town hazardous waste day. So anything in the trash is really mostly food, just kind of common everyday items.
The thing that concerns me about trash is that I don't think I'm reluctant to see you putting stuff in trash in there that's gonna have an odor or whatever, okay?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
An odor, anything that's in trash that's gonna smell or anything like
Gotcha.
that, okay? I'm reluctant to allow that to occur.
Understood, yep.
Couple other comments. This is an interesting one, really, because it goes way, way, way back. I did ask the town to look up some of the previous, if there was any decisions by the zoning board. And historically, there were 3 decisions on this property. The first one goes back to December 1950. And at that time, they wanted to extend that cement structure. And I believe it was denied. And then back in '69, they wanted to apparently replace a wooden shed in the back of that thing up there with a cement one, and that was approved. Then the last one was in April of 2002. And that one was to replace the shed with a new one, and that was denied. But a couple of comments that I took out of that 2002 decision was that it recognized that there were 3 things on that property: the garage, the house, and the shed. And the other thing is that they acknowledged that the garage use was for an auto repair. But I don't know to this day when auto repair started on that property. But I gotta believe it might go back as far as before I was born. It might go back to the 20s for all I know, okay? But it certainly goes way back, I think, before the bylaws came into effect, which we heard in the last case was 1942. So there's definitely been an approved non-conforming use for a long, long time. If that were to start, if you were to start all over today, and that thing was never there and you wanted to put something there, it would totally be denied, and you would not be, this board would not grant it. But it is grandfathered. I recognize that. So that does affect a decision.
Got it.
Can I just clarify something? On your application, you're applying for a special permit. You wrote, "I am requesting a zoning change." I think that's probably a misunderstanding of the semantics of it or whatever. You're not really requesting a zoning change, right?
So I actually.
Is it for my application or was it?
I'm not sure who wrote this, but that's what the
If
application
it's
says.
in regards to his business, he wrote the,
Okay,
like, the summary.
So the summary is made with the application I need
Yeah.
to, right?
Yeah.
For the zoning, I don't believe.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm
The
not,
zoning of the area would not change.
No.
You're just asking to do something there.
I would like to
That's-
just change the use of the property.
Right, okay.
And there would be no construction going on, nothing like that, no, we're not building anything further out or anything like that, we just want to change the special permit use.
I have a question, maybe for both the board and, so is he giving up his right to do auto repairs and
If
Right.
he were to
Auto
wanna do
body
that
shop?
in the future, he'd have to come back and get a use.
Yes, they'd have to
So
get another
that's-
special permit for
that-
the use to go back to
because I thought it was kind of inconvenient to have that type of business amongst the residentials there.
Yeah, and I honestly don't, I know that there've been complaints from neighbors
Yeah.
in the 80s. I did some research on the property because, there used to be a spray booth there and they had a permit to spray cars, but, that all is like,
It would
has
get-
fumes and everything like that. So all the spray booth and the fans have all been removed prior to my purchase of the property. So right now, it's just basically a 1,300 square foot rectangle with 2 garage bays that I would like to just use or get a permit so that way, someone like him and his business could, come in, park some of his vehicles that say his name, get his name out there. It's in a great location. That way, he can run his business out of there and I don't need the extra garage space for anything personal, so, that's what we're just kind of looking to do.
Do you have any idea when auto repair ceased on that property?
I don't, I would say within like a year maybe, a year maybe.
Well, I've been living up in that neck of the woods since 2004, and there's been no such thing
Road painting guy.
As,
on that property, to my knowledge.
The previous owner did have like all of his stuff in there.
Really?
He passed away, so the wife ended up having to sell it, but he had all of his mechanic stuff in there.
And when was that?
And prior to the sale of the property, so I would have to ask the previous owner when she removed it. I don't know. When I bought it, it was
Well, there
cleaned
may have
out.
been stuff stored in there, but I just don't remember seeing
I think he
any
was doing more of his own.
actual work being done there. I don't remember when that.
I seen it a couple of years ago, he was.
If I may, he owned two shops. And this was his auxiliary shop.
Yeah.
And kind of his toy shop. He
Oh.
had some very exotic, expensive cars.
Okay, what's your
So
name?
he would,
Philip Huntington,
Okay,
East Warren,
I'm sorry, I'm just wanted.
well, we just
I'm,
need,
sorry.
I'm Dan's father and I'm an owner. And I spoke at length with his wife. And he was using that for an overflow shop. And he would store his, he had some very, very nice cars. He passed away about a year and a half ago. So up until that point, he was kind of in and out, and he was also making the shop very, very nice to keep his cars in. He cleaned out all of the bodywork dust and everything else. But he was bringing cars over that were finished, that were overflow.
Okay, thank
As
you.
far as painting or anything there, he stopped painting. I don't know when he took the spray booth out, but he stopped spraying over there because the booth that he had in there was not what we would call a European booth. The booth he had did not scrub the air leaving. It basically filtered the air coming in. So it created a problem with the neighborhood.
So do you know when the body work started there? What year?
20 years ago, 25 years ago. He started, that was his main shop when he first started.
That's interesting.
They live in North Reading. He lived in North Reading.
Because that would say that it started after the bylaws were in place.
Body work, there might have been other
Yeah,
mechanics.
It might have been, yeah, they differentiate between an auto body shop and an auto mechanic. So it may be circumstances.
It's still business rather than residence, is it not?
It would still be business rather than residence, but the
So
auto
how do you-
mechanic may go back beyond the beginning of the,
It was probably
if I remember-
around 1938.
so it was 1938,
It's the whole issue of whether or not that
They had
use was
gas
ever
tanks in the ground.
authorized by
It
the
was-
board.
It was repair and gas station.
Yeah, it was like,
There was two underground storage gas tanks that were.
That's business, that's the business.
So I would think that,
I'm sorry to say.
especially since they've been here since then, including in 2002, that issue would have come up if it had been an issue.
Yeah. I'm just,
I mean, the town,
I'm just
I mean-
surprised that was never approved by the zoning board.
Yeah, but like you said, it could have been predated back to before the zoning. I mean, we could be missing a file. I mean, the way
Could be.
myself and
yeah.
town staff look at it, it's been, it's been an auto mechanic use.
grandfathered in.
Before he
Well, it's
was,
kind of a moot- it's kind of a moot point at this point.
before he
because
was
it's
in there, his
grandfathered.
tenure was about 20 years. But he was renting originally from another person. And he moved in there, it was an auto body shop. He took over an auto body shop 20 years ago. And before that, I don't know, other than that there was a friend of his that sold him the property 8 years ago or 10 years ago, but had owned it and rented him the property as an automobile repair shop.
Can I ask a question? How many trucks at any given time would be there? Like if all of your guys are coming in for lunch at the same time, how many trucks and how big are they?
Got it. So average size pickup trucks, we have one small commercial van. I'd say on average, on any given time, we usually don't have more than two. If it was maxed out and we did have everybody there, we would have 4 vehicles there.
How about overnight?
So overnight right now, so we have myself, I bring a vehicle home. It's just one vehicle that we have overnight at the moment. And then during the winter, it'll be 2 vehicles, which we should be able to store both in the garage.
so there's actually mentions in the 1950 ZBA announcement of an auto repair shop being present at that point in time, which would have been a non-conforming use then too. So
Yeah.
I think we're
It was recognized as a non-conforming
Yeah.
use. My question was it ever approved? And they just recognized it existed at that time. And we'll never find that record, I guess, in the town hall, so we're asking a question we don't have the answer to.
Any further questions from the board? Let's officially open it for public comment. We've heard from those here. So we'll have them step up to the podium and you guys can sit down for a second. We'll have you go first.
Hi, my name is Michael Sandberg. I live at 935 Main Street. I'm in a butter to the property, which is, we're talking about 941 and 943. I'm 935, right next door to the property, just south of the property on Main Street. And I really only had 3 questions that I wanted to ask the applicants.
Sure.
Not really the board,
That's
the
fine.
applicants, to find out more about what would be going on. So if I could just read them. I noticed, for example, that there's no signage of Eastern Pine at Linfield, Essex, or the North Reading address. None of the addresses. If chemicals are stored at any of these addresses, shouldn't appropriate signage be present to alert firefighters in case of fire? So that was the first question I had. That there's no signage at all, so I was really shocked. I know 2 of the addresses are residences, the ones at Essex and Linfield, and there's a garage in North Reading. But even that doesn't have any signage on it whatsoever regarding Eastern Pine, so I was curious as to why.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually only have locations right now in North Reading and a small, my co-owners in Essex. We used to operate out of Linfield. It's originally, it's my parents' home. So right now, we're not going to put signage on a home. In North Reading, we don't have any signage there, but at 943 Main Street, we do plan to put signage in.
So let me ask, why wouldn't there already be signage in North Reading?
Yeah.
If that's I mean, you're thinking of Reading in a sense as an elaboration of what you have in North Reading. So it's not clear to me why you don't have specification in North Reading.
Yeah, that's a great question, and nice to meet you, by the way. In North Reading, we have our landlord there. He has a garage behind our building, and he has a big Richardson's garage sign. It's like 4 feet in diameter. So that's his signage there. I'd asked him if we could put our signage there, but he was it's like a historical sign, so he wanted to keep that there. So that was actually one of the reasons I'm wanting to move to Reading, is because I would like to get our name out there. I would like to have our signage, but that's been something we haven't been able to do so far.
So that was my first question. My second question is the North Reading garage has multiple buildings for storage. Why add a Reading address only 3 miles away?
I think he's gonna.
I believe this is a replacement rather than.
Is that not relevant? It's not a germane question?
Well, no, if it's the question I would imagine is, I believe you probably answered it as part of the initial presentation. They are not necessarily adding a separate building. They are replacing the North Reading business with a Reading business.
I see. I didn't read anywhere that the North Reading was going to become defunct. But so that's the issue. You're going to drop the North Reading property. What can I ask why? Why make the route from North Reading to Reading?
Part of it was the signage, but the other part is just a bigger location.
But actually, North Reading has multiple large buildings. I actually visited the site the other day, much larger than what's available in Reading.
So you mean like a different building in North Reading, not the actual?
At the same address. If right behind the garage, there are a number of other large buildings that could potentially be used for storage, much greater, many times greater than what would be available.
He doesn't
at
own
Reading
that
lot.
property, so he can't just.
I'm just asking.
If I may
I'm
answer
asking
that
what the
question.
rationale is.
If I may answer that question,
Sure.
our rent is very conducive. And that's why he was.
So it's a financial.
Believe me, our rent is very conducive.
And it's being used. There is no other building that we can use back there. My landlord, the Richardson's garage sign that I was referencing, so he uses that. There's one like building behind there, and he uses that for his business, which
For
is
other
like a
activities.
trucking business. Yep.
Actually, it all looked pretty quiet when I visited the other day. Okay, the last question I had is Eastern Pines' published hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. weekends. These are inconsistent with the shorter 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekday only hours requested for the Reading address. How will the applicants reconcile these differences?
We'll let the applicants answer.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I wasn't actually aware of the 9 to 5, so we will be open 8 to 6. But if that's an issue, we could just use the
Because it
building.
was actually put 9 to 5, wait, it was put in the application, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and not including weekends. But yet you're open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays and something like a good 8 hours on each of the weekend days as well. At least that's how you published it, how you've been. So what are you actually planning to do in Reading?
Got it. So I didn't make the application, so I'm not 100% on that. But if that were to be an issue, I could just use it from 8 to 5. I would love to be able to get in there, whenever we can. I guess.
Can I ask, where did you see that was published, the hours?
Online.
No, like on the
It
application.
is in the
You
application.
can see it on the application. It speaks about 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and doesn't mention weekends at all.
I mean, I filled out an
I
application.
can read it to you in the.
Last paragraph of the first page.
Okay, yes, it is yours.
Got it. So, yeah, I did put that in there. If that were to be an issue, I certainly could do
And I
that.
could tell you as in a butter, and in terms of work being done and activities, I would naturally prefer not to have weekend activities. In fact, that's, I think, how it's been for the auto body shop. I think the auto body shop has only been operating on weekdays. And I can tell you as the next door neighbor, they've been entirely quiet. I never heard from them at all. Anything went on. The only time I ever had any occasion to visit them is when I had to drop off some mail that was inadvertently given to my address instead of theirs. So that would be my preference if they were to open in Reading, to stick to the hours that they actually put in the application. Anyway, that's all I had to say.
Okay.
I just
You may
add one-
respond if you want.
Thanks.
If you wouldn't mind standing, just so we can
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
you up.
Absolutely. So I can definitely clear up the weekend issues. We don't use the shop on the weekend at all. We don't work on the weekends, but we do take phone calls on the weekend. So I mostly work from my house, so the technicians go there. I go there maybe a couple times a day to check in on things and whatnot. But during the weekend, we don't do any field work or anything like that. So I might pop by on the weekend on like a Saturday if we have like a Amazon package or something like that, grab it, bring it in the shop. I definitely made a mistake here. I think I was just thinking like 9 to 5. Like I did not mean to do that. So I apologize for that, but I can certainly tell you we're a very quiet operation. Like we go in the morning around 8 to 9, sometime between that time frame. We grab our stuff, we go, we're out for really 95% of the day. The guys come back for lunch. Sometimes they'll come back at the end of the day. Sometimes they don't because they bring the trucks back to their home. But we could start there at 8. That would be very useful for us. But I think in terms of what you're used to, I think it sounds like very similar to how we operate.
And you don't anticipate any chemicals being stored on site?
We will be storing products on site. The products that we use are typically lower in toxicity than what you'll find like under a sink or in a home garage. Or when you go to like the pharmacy, there's different classifications of insecticides. The insecticides that we use are either organic or classification 1 insecticide, which basically means there's a caution warning on there. And if you go to like Walmart or Walgreens, you'll find the shelves are stacked with warning and danger labels, which you'll find probably under your sink or in your garage, in your shed as well. So the products that we use are really low in toxicity, comparative to what else is out there.
Well, and I guess lastly, you feel that you'll have adequate signage so that if should an occasion require for firefighters to come, they'll know what they're dealing with.
Absolutely, yep.
The board can make that a condition as well if we decide to approve it.
I think there's several things we might want to condition.
Right.
I'll address those when we
Let's hear from anyone else that would like to speak.
I have difficulty standing. Is it
Oh, okay, yeah,
Be heard?
This is the mic, so just talk that way.
Thanks. My name is Margaret Cowell. I live on Main Street. I have
What address?
I'm sorry, 958. So I'm kind of across the street, so to speak. I have some huge concerns here. One with the chemicals used. I've had someone come in to deal with mice and so forth in my own property to recognize the number of different and varied chemicals that can be used and the toxicity. And there are some where if they put out containers or whatever else, any other small animals, et cetera, can access those chemicals and potentially die and be very sick from them. And we've had comments about those when they put in a building recently and they disturbed a lot of rats and people came with these type of containers. So right away, your product is toxic. And it's not just a concern if it catches fire. It's a concern because it's out there and it's in the area. You're also catching and bringing back animals in a trash situation, and you're just gonna put them in the local neighborhood trash when it's picked up, which is a weekly thing, which means that potentially on a Friday, somebody can start and you can have a week's worth of dead animals in trash bags. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's just unacceptable from a neighborhood standpoint. We abut, across Main Street are wetlands. So we have all kinds of small animals already and many different types. Protecting them and making sure that raccoons aren't eating mice out of a trash bag and then carrying it in, et cetera, has to be a concern. And so, I mean, just the idea that somebody would have dead animals and bring them to our neighborhood for a week and think that, well, what if the trash doesn't get picked up on time? Or what if, you know, there's just too many variables there. This is a neighborhood with children and dogs and pets, et cetera. And I think this is introducing something that really needs to be looked at. I'm not convinced that you do that or have to do that in your present location because you don't have, it sounds like, anyway, you don't have a lot of families and dogs and people in that area. So, I mean, there's that. Can I ask how many people are in your business?
Yeah, it's myself and 4 technicians.
So there's 5 people, and how many vehicles?
So we have 5 vehicles. I have one at my home, they have 4 vehicles as well.
So at any given point in time, based on a decision, I mean, if you get an okay to come here, you could put your 5 vehicles there. And all 5 of those vehicles will have product in it. And now it looks to me as if there's a container beside the garage. It's gray. Is
That's
that the
mine.
shed?
That's mine.
Oh, so is that
That's
going or is that?
No, that's mine. That's my personal storage.
So it wouldn't be in there?
No. He's gonna have like a locked cabinet, everything's gonna be inside. There is no storage of chemicals outside of the building, and anything that he's using would be in his vehicles. So nobody would be able to get access now. And he's already talked about how the toxicity of the chemicals that he uses, he's mostly organic. And like, so, and he doesn't trap large animals, it would be like a mouse. And I've killed 7 mice in my house in the last month. And I put them in.
That's neither here nor there. I mean, I think I have to
With that,
consider.
there could be we could get a dumpster, or there's a lot of ways to, there are exterminators in every town. So where do they put their, you know what I mean? Like, there has to be.
It's not in a yard and it's
Folks,
not
at
in
this
a.
point, we're actually going to ask you to address the board
I'm sorry.
specifically, okay? So we can ask you to please finish your comment, and then Mr. Hunter, I'm sure you'll have an opportunity to respond if necessary.
From my history
One second, please,
of living where I have since the late 80s, there were different tenants in there. In other words, at one point, the owner of the garage was also living in the house. Then that changed a little bit, and then it went empty for a while. Then somebody got it, and that was when the painting booths and so forth. And that was when the town clamped down and said, nope, they had to go because they were starting to use those. That tenant or whoever was doing it moved out, and it was empty for quite a while until the person that recently passed away, I believe, moved in or brought, he didn't move into the house has been empty, but he brought his thing there. And people could bring, there'd be 2 or 3 cars parked out front, and then they'd be worked on, but there was no noise, there was no odors, there was nothing. I mean, it was a very quiet operation. I'm not convinced, I guess. I hesitate to do something because we can't undo it. Okay, if all of a sudden there's a problem with his trash, or if there's another tenant that's irresponsible, then we're dealing with it and it's really hard to undo it. This is a neighborhood. This was an attached thing. This was like a secondary thing. I don't want to keep a person from doing business or renting a property. But why would we invite in something that has so many variables that are in the negative for the dogs and the children and the people in the community? Sorry, but I'm just saying there have to be other places.
Thanks. If I may, and I'm going to ask Ty a question. Are you
Sir, I'm going to ask you to come up to the podium, please.
Is Ty licensed? Is he dealing with controlled substances that he's licensed to handle? And he is inspected. This is a licensed operation. This isn't somebody that is just working out of his backyard or his garage and just going around shooting chemicals. He is licensed to do what he's doing and knows how to handle the product safely. And this whole thing about all the animals that are going to come there, the deluge of animals, I would imagine usually if he catches a mouse on someone's property, it goes right into their garbage pail. He doesn't have to bring it back to a shop. I know that's where they go when I catch them in my house. I don't see a real impact here. Where I see an impact is if Ty does not come in, this will be, because this is an investment for me and my son. And my son would prefer this to be something like this, but this will be a repair shop. And then we don't want it to be a repair shop. We don't want to have cars there. We don't want 10 cars on the property. If there is a repair shop, you will have 10 cars on the property parked overnight because they have the right to do that at this point. We have that right. We are trying to reduce the impact on the neighborhood and be good neighbors. So that's all I gotta say.
Is someone living in the house?
Yes.
One of you or?
No, this is rental property.
Okay.
This is, I live out of state. My son lives in Reading. This is a venture, father-son venture. And we are not planning on selling the property. We are planning on owning the property for a long time. And keeping it nice and being good neighbors. At this point, if you go past the property and look at it, there's a great improvement in the visual on the property. The property's been cleaned up. We've had tree services in. We've planted flowers. Dan is a resident. He lives a quarter mile away. Drives by it. His children go to the schools. He drives by it every day. And he would like it to look nice all the time. And we want to be good neighbors. And we feel we've had a lot of applicants to rent it. Ty, we felt, was the best fit. Minimal impact, minimal cars coming in and out. He's not retail, and he's not selling product. He's just using it as basically his office and a rally point for his men, because they all work in the field, they don't work in the shop, which, in my mind, you cannot find a better tenant or a better business because you don't have the traffic and you don't have the mess outside. Where if it went back to its original usage, which we don't want, because this property was a major expense for the remediation. The property is totally clean. It had 3 underground storage tanks. It had contamination in the earth, and it was deemed in February totally clean. We want to keep it clean. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Just
Sure.
one more question. Are there any deed restrictions on the property?
Is there any what?
Are there any deed restrictions on the property itself?
There was no restrictions.
Mr. Austin, could you address the dead mice issue again?
Yeah.
I can imagine, and I don't know if this is how you operate or not, but I can imagine that if over the course of a week, your 4 different trucks have been collecting dead mice in various places, you might have 20, 30 dead mice that you're putting in a garbage can and putting in your garbage. And do I have that potentially right, or and how do you control that?
Yes, it is different on a weekly basis. Like this time of year, we aren't really dealing with a ton of mice. It's more so like in the fall and the winter that we deal with that type of thing.
Well, either way, whatever.
But yeah, in the fall and the winter, it can be different every week, but that may be an accurate number. But in terms of like, in the area that we are in now, it is a residential area. It's very, very similar to 943 Main Street. We've had 0 issues within that time. With the trash situation, we've never had a problem with that. We've never had a smell, or we've never had animals going after it. We use very secure barrels, which is something we always promote to our clientele as well, because we do have some of that issue at clients' homes if they, get raccoons going after the trash barrels or whatnot. And we'll tell them what barrels to use. And I apologize, I forget any of the points that you brought up, but I think one of them was the impact on the local wildlife. So we won't be using any products at 943 Main Street. We're already operating in Reading, North Reading, Linfield. That's like our main area. So the service that we provide isn't going to change, or like the products that we use. We're very environmentally conscious company, so those things are really important to us as well. But yeah, in terms of what we're actually doing at the garage itself, there's really no harm to like local wildlife or really anything else for that matter. And since the 6 years that we've been in North Reading, we've had 0 issues there with any of those things that you mentioned. And I know you mentioned that previously there's auto body shops. It seemed like they're very pretty low key, but that was what was there before. We don't know what's going to be there in the future. So we know we're a quiet operation, but if there is an auto body shop that goes there, it might not be a quiet operation. It might be, you don't know what they're going to do, but we know we're a quiet operation. So I hope that gives you some peace of mind.
Let me just make sure I get this straight. So the hazardous materials get used off-site at the customer's house. Rodents get collected. That is what gets thrown away, not the hazardous material. That gets thrown out on a specific date, and then you store that in a locked something in your...
Yep. So like any bottles or anything like that, we store away, and then either there's hazardous waste companies that can collect that, or every town pretty much has a hazardous waste day where you can bring those bottles to. So we take advantage of that.
And once the mice or rodents are deceased, that doesn't attract other mice.
Yeah, we've never had issues with that.
It's just the raw product.
Right, and it's just in like snap traps, so it's just like it's kind of gruesome, but that's kind of the most humane way to do that. So yeah, they're just in snap traps. They don't attract other animals or anything like that. And the barrels that we use, even if it did attract animals, they can't penetrate through those barrels.
They're industrial thick, or...
Yep.
Just as a point of clarification, you're retaining your business in North Reading as well as...
It's just moving to Reading.
You're moving the whole thing to Reading, so you're moving out of North Reading.
Yep.
When you were in North Reading, what kind of zoning district were you in? Business or residence?
It's light industrial, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that.
That's a big difference. That was industrial. This is a residential area. It's a big difference.
It is, it's within a residential.
Therefore, these things become bigger to think about.
Okay, yep.
That's all I'm saying. So I have a problem. I totally agree with this lady. I do have a problem with that. And the question is, how do we deal with it? So, anyway,
Can I add one other thing, or
Yeah.
am I not allowed to? Can I say one other thing?
No, you can.
anything you got to say, we're here to say, we're here to hear it.
Just briefly.
We haven't closed.
I've visited the North Reading site, taken pictures, and of course,
Yeah.
I know what's right around the corner. The North Reading site is is somewhat less residential than the Reading site. The garage that's located there is really further afield from any neighboring properties, so it is more isolated. So I would have been surprised if there was a lot of neighbor interaction with what was going on there. That's all I can say.
Is there any more public comment? We got one more.
Kathleen Murphy, you have to swear me in or whatever you do.
Oh. Do you swear the testimony before this board is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So help you God. Yep.
I live at 946 Main Street, across the street from this edifice. And I second what Margaret said and this gentleman's concerns. I don't think poisons have any place in a neighborhood. I think they get into the environment whether you want them to or not. And I just think, why put this kind of a thing where we live? I mean, what's more important, the neighborhood or, you know, this company that could go somewhere else? We're not going anywhere else.
Are you concerned with the chemicals being in the trash or just in the?
Both. In the building and in the trash. And wherever else they might be. I mean, something could leak. And I just think it's a bad idea. I'd rather see a ballet school or something like that. I'm serious. I'm serious. I wouldn't find that objectionable, and I don't think it would have a negative impact on the neighborhood. So I think you ought to,
The prior business had a negative impact. It polluted the soil and everything.
well, his trucks would pollute the air. I called the police once about an old car that was outside of the body shop, and that was, apparently he had trouble starting some of these old cars, so we would put them out and let them run, and this was spewing exhaust fumes all over the place, and I called the police and they took care of it, and it never happened again. So I didn't really have a problem with the body shop, and I also don't like the idea of a business running on weekends in a neighborhood. I mean, give us a break. We have exhaust from Route 28. We all live on Route 28, and another consideration would be adding the exhaust from 5 more trucks to that exhaust. I mean, we're dying slowly, so you're trying to speed it up. You know, I just think it's a bad idea. I think you ought to think twice about the people who live there and less about somebody wants to make money.
One comment?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tony DiRezzo, 130 John Street. I apologize for my lateness, but I was wondering if the applicant has shown any evidence that the non-conforming use has been in use for the last 24 months.
It's been used as an auto body shop as far as we can tell since it's been established.
Yes, but has the auto body shop actually been open and operating for the last 2 years?
According to his testimony, there was an auto body repair. We'll let the applicant speak.
The only reason I ask this is because under section 7.9, a non-conforming use that has been abandoned or not used for more than 2 years will no longer be considered a non-conforming use or grandfathered and must revert back to the underlying zoning. Thank you.
What's the answer to that question?
The town has been under the impression that the use has been within 2 years.
Within 3?
within the 2 years.
Well, his comment was within 2 years, within the last 2 years.
So I said 2 years.
Okay. So we have the building department's comment that it's been considered active.
We fielded maybe hundreds of calls on this property, and our response has always been the only use that could be there by right would be an auto body or auto repair shop. So that's, I mean, probably 100 phone calls on this property in the past 6 months, you know, potential buyers, and the town stance has been that they could by right continue the use of an auto body or a repair shop. Any other use would need a special permit. So that's I guess the town stance on it, not just mine, but you know, with some other staff, that has been this property's been, there's been a lot of inquiries about it. It's been brought up a lot. There's been, you know, a lot of different companies, and that's always been our stance since the first phone call.
Well, a very quick public comment on this question if you still wanted to, and then.
The only thing I can add regarding its recent use is that it's been pretty quiet over the last couple of years. I think I have seen a gentleman in the shop when I delivered mail to him, but whether they were really actively working on cars, there's no way that I could say.
Okay.
And there haven't been many cars outside
Okay.
at all.
Let's close public comment and let's open it up for discussion for the board. You're gonna sit on this one?
Well, if it's gonna go back to what it was before, and that already proved that it polluted the land, it exhausted all kinds of chemicals out into the air. I live near the neighborhood, but I wouldn't wanna live abutting that property. And I believe this business, if it goes in, a couple of minor adjustments with the trash, I really don't see being detrimental to the neighborhood, especially with the garages all contained and everything. I'd rather see this than a garage or a mechanic shop. I don't know how the mechanic shop. I drive by there because the kids go to school there. So I would see cars out there within a year ago, 2 years ago, less than that. It kind of looks weird having an auto body shop in the middle of the neighborhood, you know?
I'm with you on the auto body shop. I do think it doesn't really fit in
If
with the
this
neighborhood.
cancels it, it's a good thing.
I think this would be a little less detrimental. I know we have had some concerns with the neighborhood. I think some of those concerns have been addressed. If we condition, if there were to be an approval here, we would most certainly have to be conditioned on signage, warning signs, you know, industrial trash use that's thoroughly concealed. I would limit the garages to be being used for 2 cars overnight. You know, during the day is different. We could consider limiting the Saturday use if I did hear some concerns about Saturday
He already
use.
said they don't do it.
Oh,
He said he works from home over the weekend, they just take calls.
oh, okay. Missed that part. Those are my thoughts.
I mean, ultimately, the standard here is we may grant the petition for special permit if the proposed use, it is not substantially more detrimental than the existing use. If you look at any auto body shop, particularly in the chemicals that they leach into various leach fields and a lot of the surrounding kind of issues that come up with any auto body shop, it is a very, very bad circumstance. It's also a former, because it had the gas tanks, it's also a former gas station, which generally will create limitations based upon how that property can be used as well. It generally, I know that I had circumstances with another former gas station that ended up not being able to be used for residential property for at least 107 years. So there are limitations to what the property can be used for. And I honestly, based upon the information that the applicants brought forward, I believe that the proposed use is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use. So I'd be in favor of granting the special permit.
Even with it,
Yeah,
you have to hit certain
I'm
conditions.
in agreement with that. I don't know so much about the conditions, particularly the parking. I mean, as far as I'm aware, in that district, there aren't any restrictions on anybody owning property, that say you can only park so many vehicles in your driveway. So I don't know if it's appropriate to limit that, but I mean, I will take the applicant, or actually the proposed tenant, at his word about the way the business operates. I do think that there is a potential concern, and we would want to put on some conditions to make sure that there aren't carcasses of animals sitting in the garbage for, 6 days, that isn't secured. But that's my primary concern. The chemicals, again, I take him at his word that they're not any harsher than what probably I have in my garage right now. Or you see on the shelves of Walmart. So,
And they're being disposed of at the
yeah, and they're being disposed of properly when they do have an empty bottle or something like that. I'm inclined to agree that it is not substantially more detrimental than the special use that the property has had for, as far as anybody knows, many, many, many years.
Since at least 1919.
Right.
If you look at some of the decisions.
Right, and if this would change the permitted use to this pest control business, nothing more, nothing less. If there were any further change requested after that, it would have to come back to us. And at that point, the standard would be that it could not be substantially more detrimental than the pest control business. So the way I hear these businesses described, and I think your standard is actually going up. And the next time around, it would be even higher. So I'm inclined to permit it perhaps with some of the conditions that we've been discussing.
I don't think anyone disagrees with the fact that this is a better situation than was there. I mean, you can't argue with that one. Okay, I'll get back to this 2-year thing. Does the town feel that there has been activity at that auto repair shop within the last 2 years?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
I mean, I've only been here 3 years, and I can remember signage, cars. I mean, I can't tell you what they were doing in there, but I mean, the sign has been there. There's been cars on the property. We believe there's been activity. I mean, I guess.
Okay.
How do you?
So it would also need to be proven to be abandoned too. There's been no direct evidence that the use has been abandoned.
All right, because that's a good point. You made a good point. Okay.
Yeah. If the facts fit, yes.
But I have several thoughts relative to potential conditions. I think, and I'll just throw them out on the table for discussion, okay? One is that we condition this thing on what will only happen there is storage of pest supplies, pest service and supplies, okay? Nothing else. With regard to signage, whatever you plan on doing for signage, you're gonna have to come back to him for approval of that, because the signage bylaws are pretty stringent. So you're gonna have to get approval for whatever signage you wanna do. You just can't put a sign up, okay?
Oh, I know that. Are you talking
There is a sign on the building now, so I would assume that.
Just need his approval.
Yeah.
The approval board would
Condition- I would
approve the
condition
same
it on
size
that.
sign that's there now.
Hours of use, I think you said in here 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That's what you said. Okay. Right?
I'm not gonna limit him to the mistake he made in the application.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying, I would like to suggest that we do put in a limitation on the hours. You can call it 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, you call it 8 to 5.
Can I speak for a second?
Yes.
Is it okay?
Why doesn't Cy finish his points first and then?
I'm not opposed to Saturday, but I don't like it. But I'm not opposed to it. Parking, I would suggest we maybe condition on limiting it to two vehicles. Max, one in front of each door. That's a thought to talk about, okay?
Do you mean overnight or at a time period?
I would say, I wouldn't have any problem with overnight. But it has to be only during whatever we agree on are the operating hours. The other thing is the trash issue. I live in that neck of the woods, okay? I have trash in my garage, or I might find a rodent in my backyard and throw them in the trash, so I didn't throw them in the backyard. But if I put something like that in my trash bucket, in my garage, I better not leave the doors open. Because it could happen, all right? And if I put them in my trash out in the front yard for the pickup, I've seen my trash opened up and all over the place. So it's a concern. And I think one thing I might suggest to you folks is that if you're picking up trash during the course of doing your day's work, keep it in the truck. And come trash day, put it out for pickup. Okay, rather than store it in this building. That's an alternative that you need to think about, okay?
It would get pretty sticky in the truck, I would think. Yeah.
Huh?
Make it worse if you're, I would think it would get pretty sticky in the trunk.
That's not my concern. It's not their concern. Okay? It's going to get sticky no matter where you put
There's
it,
conditions and there's
okay?
reasonable
I'd rather have
conditions.
it there than in that garage.
If they're in a sealed bag, I think that's the condition. They should be in sealed bags and in the container that he's talking
You
about.
better have
could
it
you
in a
require
container
multiple
than a
pickups a
bag. A
week?
bag can be opened up pretty easily.
He's already said that the containers that he uses are industrial and he's never had a problem with it where he is. So,
Are we still taking any public comment at this point? I don't believe it's appropriate.
Tara, you can speak on this one if you want.
Yeah, I just had a question. Is there other instances in town where we limit a business's hours based on where the location of their business is?
Not that I.
Okay, so can we
This has
really
never
be able to say
think
that you
we've done-
can't use your building on Saturday when
I think
they're
we've
the
done
tenant
that
of the
before.
building?
I agree.
Hours.
Not that I can recall.
Going way back, I think we did that with some of the car wash places.
I mean, I deal with construction hours, that's about it.
Car wash, that would be based on noise, and like the McDonald's, we had the concern about noise for the McDonald's.
Yeah.
But that was also at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night as
Right.
well.
But yeah, that was inherently, we were talking about 10 PM, but we never talked about limiting their hours. I don't think.
It was just the drive-through.
I just, those up for comment, discussion.
Very quickly, a response on this discussion.
So I currently live on Grand Street, which abuts Lowell Street, and I have been living in Reading since 2011, and as you guys all probably are aware, the P&S convenience store that used to be there is in the S15 district as well. And now it is a place of construction, Tango Construction. And that has a similar sized parking lot, and he has anywhere from 7 to 10 cars in that parking lot, Monday through Sunday. And overnight, he uses the dumpster for construction debris, everything else, and he operates on Saturdays and Sundays. I drive past it all the time. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Very quick.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was wondering if the town has certain standards, because we're not talking
Oh,
about
yes,
people who
I
are
forgot your name.
responsible.
Ma'am, could you identify yourself again, just for the
Oh,
record?
I'm sorry, I'm Margaret Cowell.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm not talking about that, and I wasn't addressing it from that standpoint. I said if there was a problem, it would be a problem for the landlord as well, I mean, as far as a business, but are there certain town parameters where all of a sudden, if he decided to park 3 broken down cars out front or whatever else, there's certain rules and regulations that would be applied by the landlord even, but, and as far as trash is concerned, and the chemicals, does the fire department or the town, are there any supervisory boards that say, here's what you can do and here's what you can't. So that we have some kind of an application process. Because like I said, I don't want to stop a business from anything like that. But I am trying to understand how it's hard to be in a situation where somebody is irresponsible and now you've got nowhere to go because everybody is passing the buck as to what happened.
Understood.
So you can't, dictate for every opportunity and possibility, but.
Quick response on that.
Actually, just very quick question. If I can ask you to approach again, just the podium. And I'm sorry, if you could say your name again, I'm sorry.
My name's Ty.
Ty, Mr. Huntington said that you are required to have a license to operate this business, correct?
Yep.
What type of training, what type of certification, what type of oversight is there from any sort of licensing board for the operation of your business?
Yes, every technician and myself is required to have a pesticide applicator's license. So that's a test you take to, show you're knowledgeable in this space. That's really the main test that license that everybody needs, and everybody in our company does have that.
Okay. And that is a state board, or is that done by individual towns themselves, or?
So that's the Department of Agriculture.
Department of Agriculture.
So they monitor everything we do pretty much. We give like a insecticide use report every year. A few other things, you need to maintain your license. On a basis, you need to get CEUs every 3 years. So you basically need to take courses to show you're continuing to study in this space and staying knowledgeable on the new standards. So that's kind of the ongoing studying that you need to do.
And the standards that are generally brought up are usually for environmental impact, things along those lines as well. Do they address the environmental impact of the actual insecticides themselves? Or
Yeah.
pesticides, I apologize.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really the biggest thing is environmental safety. Things have changed in pest control quite a bit over the past 10 years or so. So integrated pest management is kind of the new standard. So it's basically before you even use an insecticide, and we do this very much, before you even use an insecticide, you want to take a look at the problem at hand and see if it even needs our use at all. You might need to trim a bush back, you might need to clean and drain, you might need to unclog gutters, you might need to do a mechanical change to the building, seal up the foundation. So that's the first step. Second step would be organic insecticide use, and then the third step is, if needed, you would use a synthetic insecticide.
And are there any sort of limitations or requirements as part of the license for disposal of the insecticides, pesticides, of any of the animals that you end up trapping, things along those lines? What type of limitations and what type of requirements are placed on the business as a result of the license?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to note we're a general insecticide or pest control company, so we're really doing the very basic stuff. We don't do termite control, we don't do mosquito control. So the equipment that we have on hand is really pretty minimal use. Like, we're treating the exterior of foundations very lightly, treating areas that people wouldn't usually come in contact with, or pets or anything like that. I'm sorry, can you say the initial question again? I apologize.
No, just in terms of disposal.
Disposal. So yeah, that's absolutely part of the process for getting your license, knowing how to do that, doing that properly. So that's absolutely something a standard that they hold us to.
And what kind of standards do they actually set for disposal itself?
Yeah, so it's basically to take advantage of those hazardous waste days. You use hazardous waste companies, cleaning product properly, storing product properly. And if I could touch on the trash subject quickly, because it kind of falls in line with that. Basically, what I would propose, because we really can't put it in our technicians' trucks, so they'll all quit on me if they're having mice in their truck for the week. So what I would propose is to basically use like a container outside of our the garage itself, have a lock on that has to be locked at all times. I use an industrial grade barrel that animals cannot get through. Always keep the trash, and keep in mind 90% of our trash is food, common everyday items. We really don't have a lot of mice in these trash bags, but always have them sealed, always have them in those barrels, in that locked container, and then only bring them out, the day of for trash.
Brett, do we place any restrictions on what can be put in dumpsters or anything along those lines for any businesses based upon what a property would be able to use or anything like that?
Not that I know of. I mean, the health department may, but nothing they don't want construction debris is really what I know, but other than that.
I would think that if we want to make sure that something is not substantially more detrimental, then there are conditions that make sure that that happens are within our purview.
And I think that, so yeah, if you could just.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up one other point. I'm sorry to bring us off topic, but to the cars, I know I had mentioned that right now we actually don't have any cars there. I think a couple months ago we had one vehicle there. We're mostly bringing the cars home, but I would like in the future, we do want to grow. So if we could bring more cars there in the future, I wasn't trying to say that we wanted to limit it to 2 cars. If we could have more cars there, that'd be great. They're just going to be parked there, not doing anything, not causing any harm. They're not going to be worked on, from a mechanical standpoint. They're just going to be hanging out there, and mostly that would be during the winter.
Would that be overnight only, or would that be throughout the course of the day as well?
It could be throughout the course of the day, like if we have an extra vehicle, but mostly overnight. Usually at any given time, we would have one vehicle during the day. Just as a backup vehicle. I can't guarantee that, but that's typically what we've done in the past.
I'm sorry, we've closed public comment at this point.
I entertain a motion, or if we want more discussion.
I'd like, if the committee is done discussing, I'd like to take a stab at a motion.
Sure.
I'd like to move that the board, regarding application number Z2410 of Daniel Huntington for a special permit to allow a change of use to a pre-existing, to a structure that has a pre-existing non-conforming use, to allow the change of use to the pest control business as generally described in the application, with the conditions that all garbage, including especially carcasses of dead animals, be secured and not put outside until trash day, and kept in a secured manner as the applicant's proposed tenant has described to us, and that no cars, that only 2 cars be parked outside overnight on the premises, or trucks. More could be inside, but only 2 outside overnight. That appropriate signage be erected to warn first responders of the presence of any chemicals on the property, that the chemicals be appropriately secured, as has been described to us by the applicant, and that the Eastern Pines usage of the premises be limited from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekdays. And the special permit would be further subject to the following regular conditioners. Number 1 is not applicable. Actually, none of these are applicable because the building is not being changed.
I will second.
I'm gonna say the signage is subject to approval.
Yeah, signage subject to the normal approval process, which we don't specifically do.
All those in favor?
Aye.
4 out of 5 passes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So
I'm
used
reading,
to-
it's
I'm
like,
so
oh, that
used
has
to,
to do
like-
with rebuilding something.
Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you.
Take care. That's necessary. I forgot you already sent the records.
Oh.
About related.
Making conditions, other conditions.
That's okay.
Well, that we did,
We
yeah.
already pretty much discussed it during the hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. That'll be in the minutes.
Yes. Minutes. Did anyone have any comments on the minutes from July 2nd?
I'll only say that I was actually not present for that one, so.
Yeah, I would just change, so I use they them pronouns, so my prefix is mix, MX, I marked it up.
Was it all just the one set of minutes?
Yep.
Move to approve the minutes as amended, and with minutes changes that she has.
Second?
In favor? Move to adjourn?
Second?
Adjourn, we're off the record.
I just want to make a